Elijah, the prophet who never experienced death. What an impressive trajectory he had. This ancient prophet emerged as God's man at the exact moment, having been prepared at Chariot, shaped in Zarephath, powerfully used on Mount Carmel, anointed to confront King Ahab multiple times, and finally, receiving the company of his friend and successor, Elisha. Elijah seemed to have reached the pinnacle of human experiences, being a hero beyond comprehension, yet still humble. But he was about to surpass even that. He was about to avoid death. The scythe of death would pass far from him. Elijah's departure without passing through death places him in an extremely rare category. Only 2 people in recorded history left Earth without dying. According to sacred accounts, only 2 people were taken directly into God's presence. The first was Enoch, Genesis 5:21-24. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. The second person was Elijah. Those who are alive at Christ's return will be the last to experience this kind of departure. We do not know the exact date or hour, but we know this. Those who are alive when Christ returns will be spared from death. Paul writes with certainty about this in his first letter to the Corinthians. Corinthians 15:51-54. Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed, in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. The remarkable aspect of Elijah's story is that he knew he would be taken to heaven without dying. He sets an example for us on how to live, expecting Christ's return. From the context, it is evident that God informed Elijah of his imminent departure, although we do not know when or how he did this. Additionally, God revealed this to the sons of the prophets and to Elisha, Elijah's close friend and chosen successor. 2 Kings 2:1-12. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. We come to Elijah's last day on earth, when he would be taken up in a whirlwind. The Hebrew here can also be translated as, in a gust of wind, in a moment of wind, in some kind of sweeping motion. Elijah would be caught up, and, in that instant, he would be taken from this earth into God's presence. God not only told Elijah that this would happen, and how it would happen, but also where it would happen. This explains why we see Elijah moving quickly towards the Jordan. As you read the narrative, imagine the scene unfolding. 2 Kings 2:2-6. And Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. The company of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," Elisha replied, "so be quiet." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, Elisha. The Lord has sent me to Jericho." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went to Jericho. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," he replied, "so be quiet." And Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan." But he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So the two of them continued on together. The sons of the prophets asked Elisha the same question at Bethel and Jericho. "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master today?" Elisha responded in the same way both times. "Yes, I know. Now please be quiet." Yes, Elisha assured the sons of the prophets that that was the day Elijah would be taken. But why did he ask the young men to be quiet? Some believe he did this to avoid distracting Elijah with questions and conversations that would follow the incredible revelation of the old prophet. Elisha realized that Elijah was in a special moment of reflection and needed peace and quiet. How many times have you heard that when a person is about to die, their whole life passes before their eyes? Elisha, his close friend and the young prophet to whom Elijah would pass his mantle, knew the importance of allowing time for Elijah to reflect on everything that was happening. So, Elisha asked, "No questions, please. Be silent. Give Elijah a moment to think and reflect." Gilgal was the starting point. According to Joshua 4, Gilgal was the place where the children of Israel camped after crossing the Jordan into Canaan. If you remember the biblical story, this was the place where they were still safe and protected before they began the invasion of enemy territory. So the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped at Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho. Joshua chapter 4, verse 19. Gilgal was the beginning of Elijah's final journey. Elijah's next stop was Bethel, a place of prayer. Bethel means house of God. It was where Abraham built an altar and where he frequently met with the Lord. Genesis chapter 12, verse 8. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. During his times of seeking and struggle, as well as dedication and preparation, the patriarch Abraham frequently returned to Bethel, where he had first worshipped and communicated with God. Finally, Elijah went to the Jordan, a place of death, not just physical but also the death of the ego. There, Elijah remembered the moments when he had renounced his own strength and died to his own desires and plans. Over the years, this determined prophet learned to trust in God more than in himself. He learned to walk in the strength of the Lord, not his own. He learned to submit, wait, and obey. This kind of self-denial does not come naturally. It is a learned virtue, encouraged by few and practiced by even fewer, especially among those with strong personalities. Prophets are known for having this temperament, which makes Elijah's achievements even more remarkable. He was like the most pliable clay in the hands of his master, without showing off as a hero. As has been said, he did his best work under the protection of the Almighty. His life was powerful because he reached a point where he accepted the death of his own desires if it meant the manifestation of God's glory. How does this apply to us? We all have a Jordan as our final destination. Of course, most of us do not know when we will reach our Jordan. It may take decades, or perhaps not. But there is also another kind of death, which is the death of the ego. When we learn the importance of self-denial, this death is part of taking up our cross and following Christ. Matthew chapter 10, verse 38. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. When we finally learn to do this, which is a difficult process, true peace reigns in our hearts. Parting words. When they arrived at the Jordan, Elijah's final destination on earth, Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives, I will not leave you." Elijah had been trying to distance himself from Elisha since Gilgal. I don't believe he wanted to get rid of Elisha, but he was testing his friend and future successor. "Elisha, perhaps you do not want to accompany me to Gilgal, Bethel, or Jericho, and certainly not beyond the Jordan." But Elisha was persistent. He stayed by the old prophet's side. Elisha realized that Elijah was in a special moment of reflection and needed peace and quiet. How many times have you heard that when a person is about to die, their whole life passes before their eyes? Elisha, his close friend and the young prophet to whom Elijah would pass his mantle, knew the importance of allowing time for Elijah to reflect on everything that was happening. So Elisha asked, "No questions, please. Be silent. Give Elijah a moment to think and reflect." Elisha said to Elijah, "I'm keeping an eye on you, my friend. You won't get rid of me. I'm right here with you all the way." This is how he said it. And Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So the two of them walked on. 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 6. Don't we all need a few Elishas in our lives? They give us courage, and they are indeed a rare breed. They are our close friends. They are those who are there for us, with us, and available to listen to us, help us, soften the blows of our critics, pray with us, stay in our corner, bringing us both encouragement and objectivity. The scene abruptly changed when the two men stopped at the Jordan. Now we come to the miraculous event. In Kings chapter 2, verses 7 to 10, King James Version. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off, and they too stood by Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle, and wrapped it together, and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that they too went over on dry ground. And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, Ask what I shall do for thee, before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. And he said, Thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. This miracle is similar to what happened centuries earlier when God miraculously opened the Red Sea, allowing Moses and the children of Israel to cross on dry land. The waters of the Jordan opened in this case, allowing Elijah and Elisha to cross the river on dry ground. Then Elijah turns to his friend and asks, What can I do for you before I go, before the Lord takes me from this earth? Note Elisha's immediate request. This is a man with big ideas and unafraid to share them. Elijah, you have performed some amazing miracles in your life, he says, but I would like a double portion of your spirit so that I can have twice the power. What a wonderful request. Do not be afraid to ask God for great things. I want to give you much, he says. Ask. However, many Christians have a very limited mindset. It would be wise for us to learn a lesson in vision from Elijah's faithful companion. Even Elijah, with all the great things he asked of God, remember, this is the man who called down fire from heaven, is surprised here. That's a hard one, he admits to Elisha. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, then what you have asked will be yours. Otherwise it will not. You can bet that Elisha was determined at that moment not to take his eyes off Elijah, but he did not have much time to sit and watch. It happened without further delay. 2 Kings chapter 2 verse 11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. This is fantastic. They were walking together and talking. Elijah was not preaching or prophesying at that moment. They were just two close friends walking and talking together. It must have been a fantastic moment. A chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. The Bible says it happened just like that. He went up to heaven in a whirlwind in an instant. When Elisha saw the chariots, he exclaimed in astonishment and admiration. His heart must have pounded in his throat. His adrenaline must have spiked. Then there was a blast. The whirlwind blew hard against Elijah's clothes, hair, and beard, and he was gone. An incredible moment. 2 Kings chapter 2 verses 12 to 15, King James Version. And Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his own clothes and tore them apart. He picked up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. He took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and struck the water with it. Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah? He asked. When he struck the water, it divided to the right and to the left, and Elisha crossed over. The company of the prophets from Jericho, who were watching, said, The spirit of Elijah is resting on Elisha. And they went to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. Elijah's no-death contract suddenly came into effect. Elijah, the powerful prophet, was gone. Elisha, the prophet with a double portion of power, was ready and about to be greatly used by his God. Nothing of God dies when a man or woman of God dies. We tend to forget this. Elisha is a perfect example. God always has a contingency plan. Consider this. He has had his men and women in every age to carry on his work. Throughout the centuries, God has never been frustrated, wondering, what will my people do now that he is gone, now that he is no longer with them? Our Creator God is all-powerful. He is never without resources. Elisha was surprised and stunned for a brief moment, but it did not last long. He bent down and picked up the prophet's mantle. Remembering Elijah's words, he crossed back over the Jordan, claiming the power that was now his, and began his own prophetic ministry. From that point on, God's plan never failed. Out goes Elijah, in comes Elisha. We cannot help but wonder if Elisha did not study that old mantle in the years that followed, remembering those glorious days when his mentor and friend stood alone, representing the presence of God and proclaiming God's message. The memory of the old Elijah, a man of heroism and humility, served to strengthen the young Elisha, whom God destined to use even more powerfully.